I want to talk about how to put together a team. And then once you have that team, how do I plan a season? How do I set goals? And how do I take a long-term plan or long-term set of goals and translate that into a training camp, a day, a jump, a specific person on a specific part of a jump. This is a part of training that I'm personally really passionate about, and something that I think we're really good at on Rhythm as we train, and then also as we coach other teams. So wanted to talk through, and we've been through it a lot too. So this is about team and season planning. So start with first, like, great, you're hooked on four-way, you want to do it, so what do you do next? You need a team, and then once you need a team, you need a season plan. So I'm going to talk about it in a few different parts. First, just some personal reflection and goal setting for yourself. Then, forming or finding a team and how to do that. And then once you found a team, how to set up a season plan, talking about team goals, and then planning your camps, your days, and your dives. So first, I think before you even start kind of trying to put together a team, it's important to just sit and think about what do you really want, and also what can you really do. And it's easy to think that there's a right answer, and there's really not. And it's okay if what you really want is not necessarily to quit your job and move to the drop zone and do 1,000 jumps a season and win open. That's actually a pretty reasonable thing to not want, and most people don't want that, and that's fine. But it's easy when you get hooked on four-way to get, to think that, oh, the person that wants to do the most is right, or the person that can do the most is necessarily right, and we sometimes get in over our heads. So I think about, like, what is it that you really want? Do you really want to just become a better skydiver? Are you interested in the team aspect of it and really enjoying working towards a goal with people that you enjoy? Do you want to just learn more about four-way, and then what can you really do, so where are your resources? So when you think about your goals, think about what are your goals short term for this season. Man, for this season, I would really like to go to nationals and do and do something that I'm really proud of in intermediate. That would be great. When you think about those goals, ask yourself why. I think sometimes, and we'll talk about this later when we're talking about flexibility, but understanding why allows you to be more flexible on your goals. And then what's your long-term goal? Man, I'd like to go to nationals this year, but I would love to eventually win intermediate class. That would be an incredible long-term goal for me, and I would love to do that. And then do you have other skydiving goals? Like, I'd like to be a AFF instructor, or I would really like to run a scrambles event at my home drop zone once I learn all this stuff that I'm going to learn about four-way. What can you put into this? So start to think about, like, well, what could I afford? Not just money-wise, but also time-wise. Well, I could do 1 weekend a month. Could you travel? If I needed to, sure, I could travel maybe 1 weekend a month. Maybe I could take off Friday from work. That would work. So start to think about what is it that you can do. And then lastly, I think the number one thing that I see that enables people to get more opportunities on teams is really thinking about how flexible can you be, and so that's where I got back to before. Like, if your goal is, I just want to, I want to do a 10-point average in intermediate with a team from my home drop zone, and it has to have these people on it, and it has to be named this, and we have to have these color jumpsuits, and that's great, but it's going to be a lot harder to get that. So if you start to think about, why do I really want this? I really want this to improve my skill. So maybe I don't need, I don't need to train at my home drop zone, or maybe I don't need, these things. So start to think about how flexible can you be, and you're still going to meet those goals. I think it's one thing that the last 10 years on Rhythm, and even before that, definitely my education at MIT has taught me that you can do anything, and a lot of times it's just about opening your mind up to what it's actually going to take and what it's going to look like to do that thing that you want to do. It might not look exactly like you think, but you could probably do it the more open-minded you are about it. Yeah. Now that you know what you want, now you're going to need teammates to do it. Assuming you still want to be, you still want to do a four-way team. So at this point, we often get easily enticed by the jumper who might have the most skill or the most experience, or the team that is doing the best. But that's not necessarily the best teammate. So the exercise I would have you go through, and what we go through on Rhythm anytime we're recruiting new teammates, is we ask ourselves these questions. We ask, what qualities are important to me in a teammate? And then I think, okay, when I think about teams that I've been on, and this could be in skydiving teams or even teams that you've been on at work or in other environments, what are the qualities of the teammates that you've had in the past that have that you like and that would be important to make a good teammate? And then as you think about and write down those qualities, what are the things that a person would do to demonstrate that they have those qualities? And when you do this exercise, I would encourage you to really write this list down, and put all those details down. When I think about it, man, I want a teammate that inspires me. I want a teammate that inspires me through their own actions, and by being an incredible teammate and through encouraging me and having a positive attitude. I want a teammate that I enjoy being around. So what does that mean? That means that I care about them and they care about me, and they're fun to be around. I want a teammate that's competitive and wants to win, but also have fun, So list all these things out. And I think the thing that you'll find, and the thing that we always find every time that we do this, is we list them out and then we start to categorize them. And you're going to find that skill and experience, well, they're a way smaller piece than personality, openness to learning, and availability and ability to train. And so when you're looking at teammates, those are the things that I would look at first. And also, if you think about, if you've been around the sport a lot and you think about teams that have not worked out, it's rarely about a skill issue. It's more about a personality difference, or being unable to overcome an obstacle to training. So finding a teammate that has compatible goals to you, that you're compatible with learning wise, that's open to learning in the same ways that you are, will ensure you actually get to the end of the season, and then two, when you get there, that you're going to be enjoying it. And people ask me this, man, even on Rhythm, and absolutely even on Rhythm, of course, there's a minimum amount of skill. Like, we're not going to take, if we were recruiting somebody right off AFF, but once you meet a certain minimum, if you've got the determination and the open-mindedness and the right mindset, we can overcome skill pretty quickly, or experience pretty quickly. Yeah. So if you're doing that by yourself, do that exercise and categorize it. If you already have a few people that you're starting to form a team with and you're looking for one or two more, have everybody do that exercise and then come together, hear each other's lists, and put your whole list together, and then categorize those things. It's a great exercise because it always reminds me of what are the things that I'm doing well as a teammate, or what are the things that maybe I need to work on a little more to be a better teammate myself. Notice that I haven't mentioned slot, and this is something that I feel like a lot of times people will say, oh, we have 3 and we need a tail. And I think, man, slot is like the last thing you need to worry about when finding a compatible teammate. Find 4 compatible people and then figure out the slots after that. But you can work, it's way more important to find 4 compatible people. And I think, too, this is a valuable exercise, whether you're forming a team or if you're joining a team, And again, if I'm joining a team, it can be very easy to just be enticed by the shiniest, team that had done the highest average before. But if I haven't asked myself the question of, like, what is actually important to me in teammates, you may find yourself with a team that's scoring higher, but you're not enjoying it, or you just you can't train because you're not available at the same times. So what's the point? So I think this is a good exercise either way. Once you get this list and you're either trying to join an existing team or forming a team, or maybe you're going down both routes, when you do that, the piece of advice I would give you is talk to everybody, ask everybody, and make a list, and anybody that you think that might meet your criteria, put them on the list and give them a call and ask. You really never know. So things like, well, this person would be perfect, but I don't think they would want to travel to Chicago, or I think they already might have a team or whatever. Don't worry about that. Give them a call. And the worst they can say is say no, and then you can say, here's what I'm looking for. Do you know anybody else that might be interested? And that'll kind of keep adding to your list and keep you going down the path. And even if they give you nothing, the fact that they've just heard you list out all this work that you've already done about, here's my goals, here's what we're looking for, here's what I'd like to do, here's what's important to me in a teammate. Now they may leave and meet someone else that says the same exact things, and now they connect you. So talk to as many people as you can. If you're on the side where you're looking to join a team, talk to as many teams as you can. Even if you think, well, I think they already have a team, call them anyway and say, hey, I don't know if you're full or not, but I'm looking for a team. This is what I'd like to do. This is what I can do. This is what's important to me. Do you have a slot open? And they may say no, but they also may talk to someone else who's looking for the exact same thing you are. So call everybody. And then the last thing I'd say here is just videographer is an important part of the team, and we could do a whole other seminar on a videographer, but definitely think about these same things as you're picking a videographer. So now you have a team. So now what? So I would get together, all 5 of you, and think about what is your high-level season goal and what is your plan, And I'm always reluctant when teams put a specific number on a season goal, and I think it's okay to do, but I think just be open-minded to the fact that I've had so many seasons, and you could go back and look in history, but where Rhythm has done a 16.9, a 23.8, and so if you set your goal at 17 and you come up with a 16.9, can you allow yourself to say, okay, I've achieved my goal. I got a 16.9 on this draw. Can you realize that draws can vary enough that you're okay with that goal? And if you can, then I think setting a number is okay. The other thing I would say is often, if I'm planning a big season, making gains in four-way I've found it to be, I really never know what it's going to take to get an 18, say, until I'm doing the 18. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand. Well, now I want to do a 20 and I'm going to work towards it, but I really don't know. And we've found that it's not like this gradual increase. We might be at an 18, 18, 18, 18, and all of a sudden we jump to a 20, or then we're at a 22, 22, 22 forever. And then all of a sudden we jump. And and we'll talk about goals later, but I think if you do set a point goal, just realize that it might be easier, or it might be harder than you thought, and you might, there's lots of variables there. So you could also set a goal of, we want to feel like we've improved. We want to go to nationals and put down 10 rounds that we feel like are us. That was us performing our best. A goal that's more process oriented than outcome oriented is one that you kind of have more control of, and that's absolutely how Rhythm has performed our best. I have to tell you, this nationals, our goal was to go and we were training and we were doing jumps that felt great. And then the night before nationals, we said, let's go do 10 jumps that feel like the jumps we just did. There was no talk about a point score, a place. And absolutely, exactly what place we wanted, but our focus was, let's go do jumps that we're proud of, that feel good, that we enjoy. Yeah. All right, so you have your team meeting, and you need to, as a team, answer these questions. What's your team's goal? Let's go to national. We want to go to the nationals for the first time, have a good time, and learn four-way and feel really confident. Okay, what's your budget, both in money and time? And then start to understand some of the constraints. Well, these two people can only train weekends. This person can train some weekends, but he works every 5th weekend or so. Just start to lay that stuff out. How much are you going to train? How many days a month? How many days in a season? Are you going to do short weekend camps? Are you going to do longer camps? How does travel factor in? You might have some teammates that are traveling in and some that aren't. So just listening to your teammates to understand what that means for them. Often we assume what it means and then we find out actually, well, it's really easy for this person to come in on Fridays, but all the flights on Sunday out are really tough and they have to leave early. Well, maybe what if we instead trained Saturday, Sunday, Monday? Oh, that's great. So start to talk about those things. What meets are you going to do? How much tunnel versus how much jumping? Are you going to have a separate tunnel camp versus jump camps? This sometimes has to do with the location and availability of tunnel. But sometimes I even know teams that might be close to both, but decide they're going to focus on tunnel one weekend and focus on jumping the next weekend. How many jumps would you like to do in the season and how much tunnel, Then start to think about, okay, when you're training, what does a training day look like? Are you planning on having turn rigs and will you turn loads? Are you going to pack for yourselves? And those things, and you might have somebody that's newer to this kind of training and has never done 10 jumps in a day, So how many jumps do you realistically expect from a training day, a good training day with good weather and no issues, and using all that to kind of come up with that. How much tunnel will you do in a tunnel training day? And this is, like you might say, okay, we're used to doing an hour, we'll do an hour, whatever that is. Where will you train? And this is something I often, teams will be very focused on jump cost when they decide where to train. And of course, it's an important factor, but I think a lot of teams miss also considering efficiency. And when we get to the end of the season, I feel like more teams feel like they didn't get the jumps in and would have easily paid another $1 or $2 a slot to be at a drop zone that guaranteed they got the jumps in. So yes, for sure, saving money is good, but usually we're more constrained on time than we are on money by the time we get to the end of the season. And so a drop zone that has multiple turbine aircraft that works efficiently, that has other teams training, that could maybe start early with the other teams training. Those things are just invaluable resources to getting as many jumps as you can. Another thing to consider is, if there are other teams training or if there are coaches on site, we'll talk about coaching and you may hire a coach, but I'll tell you, like if you're not hiring a coach, but you're, just for an example, like you're at Skydive Chicago training and I'm standing there, like it's going to be hard for me not to give you a little tip here or there, and that alone could overcome a $1 on a jump ticket. Yeah. Are you getting coaching, and from whom and how often? And at this point, you should start to have an action item of contacting that coach and starting to ask them about their availability. All right, so now you've answered all these questions, you need to start to kind of actually plan your season. On the Rhythm website in our resources, there's this Rhythm Guide to Team Budgeting. There's an article that talks all about this and it goes into even more detail than on the specific budgeting part. And there's an Excel file as well that allows you to put all of this information in, and it'll give you a budget. It's there for free. Go check it out. It's really cool. It's what we use for our teams when we're planning teams for the season. All right, so use that, and then get out a calendar and start putting dates on the calendar. So based on the questions that you've just answered, so we said we're going to train. We have 8 months. We're going to try and do a little more than maybe one training camp a month, and just start putting dates on the calendar. I find often like it's very easy to say, yeah, I want to train. I'm going to train 2 weekends a month, and then you get a calendar, and well, I got a wedding here, and we got this here, and I got to go to this boogie, and then all of a sudden now you don't have 2 weekends a month, So getting that calendar as soon as you can, and really understanding what can you actually do, and plan that whole season out. There might be questions that are open, and so just make the best plan you can. Maybe you say, okay, we're going to do this weekend if so-and-so can move this vacation, or we're going to do this weekend if so-and-so can move some work trip or whatever that is, and just list those action items and have a plan to clear those up. Once you've had that whole season, now you're going to have a number of days, and you can kind of guess how much are going to be jumping days and how much are going to be tunnel days. When you have those jumping days, and this is in that spreadsheet, you're going to take your jumping days, the ideal number of jumps per day, and you're going to multiply that by 60 to 65%, and that's going to give you probably the number of jumps you're going to get for that season. And that number, 60 to 65%, is a number that we use for our project teams, and it's pretty accurate. And I know it's sometimes can be, teams can be like, no, I can do better than that. And you might, one season, if you roll the dice, you might sometimes do better, but I tell you what, like on average, that's the number. And that's going to account for weather, that's going to account for planes breaking down, that's going to account for sickness, that's going to account for just all the things that come up. 60 to 65%. If you say you want to do 150 jumps, if you use that number, I think you're pretty much going to hit that 150 jumps. If you don't, you're really just rolling the dice. Tunnel days, we pretty much plan to get all the tunnel we expect. A tunnel weather day is rare. So tunnel days times tunnel hours per day, that's how much tunnel hours you get for the season. So once you've done that, then, okay, did you hit your target? Yeah, we want to do 150 jumps. We got 150 jumps. Great. If not, then you got to go back to the drawing board. If you're over on cost, or if you're under on days, and start to think about, okay, well, maybe we could do this, or maybe we could do that, or we could add this. Yeah. And then start to think about, which weekends are going to be coached and who would you like to have coach you, and that's an action item to follow up on, and I would have more than one potential coach because we get busy. So here we go. Let's say this is our team. We're a AA team. Our goal is to go to nationals and do a bunch of dives that we're just really, really excited about and proud of. Some of us have maybe been to nationals on a fun team, but we've never done like a serious training team together. We have 8 months until nationals. We've planned out 10 training camps, 10 3-day training camps. So 3 of them are going to be at the tunnel, which means we're going to spend nine days at the tunnel, training an hour a day. That's 9 hours of tunnel that we're going to do this season. Okay, jumping camps, we have 7 camps, 21 days. Ideally, we're going to do 12 jumps a day was our plan. So we're going to get 164 jumps. Great. That's exactly what we were wanting. Are we going to get coaching from who? Well, Rhythm, of course, or there's plenty of other great ones out there. But and then how often? So maybe as much as Rhythm is available, we're going to call them and see and fill it. And then the total budget you can get from that spreadsheet before. So this kind of gives us our overall idea. From this plan, we now need to take our season and break it into a plan for the whole season. So what we do is we tend to take our season and we break it into 3 parts. And I think, in each season on Rhythm, the 3 parts are kind of similar, but they sometimes change too, depending on, are we a brand new team? What are our goals? Different things like that. But the 3 parts that I recommend here for this team, and that generally follow the guideline that we follow on Rhythm, the first part is going to be technique and refining technique and setting a good foundation, right? Defining technique and setting a good foundation. The second phase is building trust and refining those things that we've learned in the first phase. And then the third phase is pure execution meet mode. Yeah. So what does that mean? The technical phase is really just that. That's the place for really diving deep into the technique and understanding, exactly what are the pictures and all the things that we've been just talking about in the last, I don't know how many seminars we've been doing on block technique and exit technique and all that stuff. That's all phase 1 stuff where we're saying, okay, my knee is going to be right here and I'm going to look right over there and that kind of stuff. Also in there is building that good foundation of random work and togetherness. All that stuff is in that first part. So here, say these training camps, we've got 2 tunnel camps and 1 jumping. 2 tunnel camps and 2 jumping camps. So the first 4 camps are going to be technique camps. Those are our goals in that first 4 camps. And in those camps, we are going to get our random work down, we're going to get our togetherness down, and we're going to work on our block technique. Yeah. Phase 2 is going to be 3 camps, maybe 1 tunnel camp and 2 jumping camps. And in that phase, we're testing the stuff that we've learned in the technical phase and refining it. We're maybe building speed, building trust as a team. We're starting to put things together in kind of styles of dives and just seeing lots of different things, just building up our experience as a team. And then the last 3 camps is going to be our execution phase, where we're not allowing ourselves to get too bogged down in the technical, and we're just focusing on going up and performing as a team. We don't need to try and push anything, go any faster than when we're already super fast. We're doing great, and we just are focused on putting together 10 rounds at a time, and feeling good about them. Yeah. So we've got that. We've got our first, we've got our camps lined out. So now we know exactly what our goals are in each camp. For the first camp, maybe our goal is to, our first tunnel camp, we've got 3 days. Maybe our goal is to really work on our random work and solidify 10 of the 16 blocks that we need to learn. That's it, right? And then the second camp, we're going to continue to work that random work, solidify the other 4, and then start just getting repetition on it. And there's our two tunnel camps, and then we go do the same thing in the sky, and we're focusing on just getting that block technique in the sky on those first 4 camps. Yeah. So now, if I go to a specific camp, right? So here's maybe the first 2 days of tunnel camp 1, right? We know our goal, we're in the technical phase. And so now I don't need to feel like I have to do everything in this camp. I know my goal at this camp, I've got 2 tunnel camps to get all the block technique lined out. So if I do a lot of work on random work in this first camp and 10 of the blocks, I'm going to be in great shape, right? So here's my plan, and I've got, okay, the first 15 minutes, this is what I'm going to work on, and these are the things that I'm working on in each session. Yeah. All right, so now that I've planned out my day, I want to talk a little bit about the specific goals. So we have a high level idea of what we're trying to do, and then when we get to the plan for the day and the plan for that specific dive, we talk a lot about SMART goals, and that's probably something that everybody's familiar with from work training and things like that. And a reminder that SMART means specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. The things that I think are at this point, when we get to at this level, are those really specific and measurable, are the things that really get us the most bang for the buck. And I feel like this because I think a great analogy, I mean, and there's a cliche that like you can climb any mountain like one step at a time. And I think about that mountain of, if that mountain is like just a mushy pile of dirt, that you kind of have an idea of what each step looks like, but you would be happy stepping on anything in that entire mountain. But once you step on that dirt, it's going to kind of like flatten and out, and you're not going to be as high as you can. But the more precise and specific and hard and well defined each step is, then once you get on that step, it's going to stay there. It's not going to move on you. So what does that mean? So for my goals, so we said, okay, we're developing our random work and togetherness, but how can we be more specific? How can we start to measure that? So what we mean when we're togetherness, maybe we get together as a team and we say, this means that we're all moving together at the same time, that we're all arriving at the exact same time, and we're on and off grips at the exact same time. Can I measure this? Well, you can, and we have long discussions on the team about how do we measure these things. I mean, certainly you could slow motion and just check the box of, yes, at this point we were all together, this point we were all together, this point we could have been more. There's somewhere in between just watching it and saying, hey, that looks great, and actually like evaluating it and saying, okay, I think most of the time we were, you might say like being really flat with each other is really important to being together and building that togetherness. So you can measure that. And now it's important that you go look at the on-level video and actually measure and hold yourself accountable for it. And the more you do that, the more specific you can be about what it specifically, what it means. And then when you debrief, asking yourself the question of, did we do that specific thing? I feel like you're taking that mushy dirt mountain and making it into this very concrete rock step that you're climbing a bigger mountain doing that. Right. So then the other goal for this part of the season might be block technique. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you know, if you listen to the block technique seminars from a couple weeks ago with me, we talked about that list. What is the build? Where's the key? What's each picture? What does the close look like? And what do the levels look like? So a specific goal for your team might be, my goal is to walk away from this tunnel camp understanding each thing. So I could sit down and I could write for every block. I could sit down and write block 2. This is what the build looks like. This is what the key looks like. This is who has the key. This is what each picture looks like. So that could be a very specific goal, and you could do it and you could measure it, and then you'd know if you got there or not, you know, and then you can go back and find the places, you know. So once you understand it, now the next thing would be, okay, as a team, we want to execute each of those things on the list correctly. Did we get the build right? Are we keying it correctly? Are we getting each picture right? And you can check those things off. And there have been phases of rhythm where we've had a spreadsheet with this list, and we go through the blocks and we just check them right off. Yep, we did that, we did that, we did that, we did that. That might be your specific goal as a team. And then after the camp, you might say, okay, our goal is to do, you know, these 10 blocks. We want to do them all so that we all understand all everything on the list. We've executed everything on the list, and now we're going to go through and we're going to clip us doing that block so that we have a video of us doing each block with everything on the list exactly right, and that's our takeaway, and that's a very specific, measurable thing that we can achieve from this camp. Yeah. So you see how much more I can get out of if I just go to the camp saying, hey, I want to learn the blocks, and you know, and you will, but if I give myself this framework, how much more I get out of that, and how much more useful that is, and how much more it's going to stick going forward. Yeah. Let me see. So diving even deeper. So say now this is specifically day 2, session 3. Blocks 21, 19, and review 6. So day 2, session 3. So here's our plan. We said we were gonna do blocks 21 and 19 for the first time. We're gonna review 6 and 8. So now, even for each dive, how precise and clear and specific can we get about our goals? So the first dive, first time we're seeing 21, our goal is to just see a really good build and see each picture. That's it. And when we get out of the tunnel, if we do that, we're gonna claim success as a team. We've made that small step. Same for block 19. Okay, block 6 is a review, and we just debriefed it. So now I know the specific thing that we're working on is that small halfway picture. Yeah, and we can even just write it on the board before you get in the tunnel. The more you know, I'm getting in and I'm doing this block, and the one thing I'm going to do is make that halfway picture small. That's it. That's what we're trying to do as a team. That's what I'm working on, you know. And then maybe block 8, okay, we've said the one thing we're going to do is the front piece is going to stay hip to hip. The back piece is going to have nice flat levels, you know. And then we might say on the last one, we're really going to look at that 9 build picture from the G. We're going to make sure maybe that's something that came up on the creepers, like, oh, you know, we really need to have good eyes to see this. So the more specific, the more concrete the improvement is. And then you could even as a person, so say I'm inside center in this group, so I might even help how can I define my goal to be as specific as possible? So, okay, dives 1 and 2, yep, I'm going to see each picture. I understand each picture. I'm ready to do that. Okay, dive 3, we talked about that halfway picture on block 6. So what am I going to do when I'm in that build? I'm going to look at exactly where Steve's center point is, and I'm going to go exactly there and no further. And when I get out, I can get out and look at the video and say, yep, I did exactly that, or no, I didn't, and go back in and do it. So the more specific and precise, right? So dive 4, okay, so here I'm in the back piece, I'm going to see Doug and really stay flat with him, you know, and here's dive 5. So, and I think something too, I just would point out as I'm defining those goals, also make sure that in your debrief, you're staying true to that precision. So it's very easy in a debrief to, want to debrief everything and fix everything. And there's a place for that. But if we are specifically trying to make something happen, let's focus on that and claim success on that and really cement that change. And you really get so much better, quicker, by biting off small pieces and really chewing those pieces well each time, not letting anything go on the one thing that you had already defined was most important. And then you can move on to the other things. It doesn't mean we can't debrief the whole dive, but let's not let ourselves off the hook on the one thing that we decided was important. So here's some more examples that we often that we've come up with on Rhythm. So for example, when we might get to maybe in phase 2, in the refining and trusting and building speed technique phase, we're really focusing on going out the door faster, and so we had a whole camp as Rhythm one year, I remember, where our goal was 3 seconds to the third point out the door, and that was it. And we would come down with a stopwatch and time it. And I tell you what, like, I would get in the door and like, it was, whatever I needed to do, I was going to get to that third point by 3 seconds, and if we didn't set that specific goal and we didn't get down, we weren't so focused on it, yeah, we might have improved, but we also would have been talking about a ton of other things, and it just wouldn't have gotten the improvement on that one specific thing that we wanted. And then now, so that's a thing that we spend a ton of time on, and now we can, we'll sometimes throw it in every once in a while. It's like, let's do some, 3 seconds to the third point training. So, and that's a specific thing. It's measurable, achievable. You can pick however many seconds works for you. So here are some other examples, right? Like, so, okay, we're specifically working on a 6 out the door. Well, okay, here's the specific thing that we want to do. We're going to see the halfway picture on the first block on the hill. That's something that I can, in the door, I can sit there and I can think about, all right, no matter what, I am making that first halfway picture happen. Yep. So here's some other examples that I came up with, maybe on a specific build, or an 18 on the hill, things that you specifically know how to do, that you can do, and that you can get down and measure. Now we've gone from an entire season plan, and then we've broken the season up into parts, and then now we're understanding what each part of, where in each part we are for each camp, and then we now have specific goals for each camp. And I think it's useful at the end of each camp to kind of just step back and debrief that. Okay, well, this camp, our overall goals were, we were in the middle phase where we're building trust and we're refining our technique, and we got these specific things done. We worked on our hill work, and we got, we're most of the time we're getting to the third point by 3 seconds, or we're, doing these specific things. And step back and say, okay, where are we in this phase? We've got one more camp. What are the most important parts of, building trust and building these parts of the phase, so that you can kind of form the next part of your camp? And then where are we over the whole season? So it doesn't mean that, for sure, there have been times we've gotten, 2/3 the way through, and all of a sudden there's a block that's like really having an issue, and we need to fix it. And we don't say, well, we're out of the technical phase, there's nothing we can do about it. Of course, we're going to go back, but it does give us perspective, so that we're not going to also spend an entire camp diving into technique. We're going to, go back and look at our technical phase. What can we learn from there? What can we maybe pick up, and how can we move on from there? It also doesn't mean that we never do a draw until the last phase. We'll kind of sprinkle in draws every once in a while through the season to kind of help us gauge where we are towards these goals. But then by the time we get to the end of the season, we're doing mostly draws. One question I get about that last phase is, it is unrealistic to just do 3 camps of draw after draw after draw after draw, and expect to perform like you would at a meet. So some things we might do, we might put draws at the, like 3 or 4 rounds at the beginning of the day, and then do styles of dives where we're maybe not going for score, but we're going for just feeling really good on these randoms, so not technical goals, but more performance goals. Or we're going to do a bunch of randoms with slot switchers or 3 blockers, and our goal is to just feel fluid, or our goal is to have an explosive starts each time. So we try and make our goals more execution type goals than specific technical, I'm going to make this happen or that happen. Another thing we'll often do is we might do what we call like a mini draw. So maybe we do a draw and we see that, okay, well, we were really competitive in these parts, but we were not competitive in the 3 blockers, or in the 2 blocks and a random, or whatever. So we might find, we might go cherry pick a few rounds that are those styles of dives, 3 rounds from, 3 different draws I found. And we'll do those 3 rounds, like those three blockers, and we'll compete on just those three blockers. And we're working on, that specific style of dive and building our confidence and building our, so we can get better at that without having to do, another draw and get maybe 1 3 blocker out of that other draw. So we're still executing, we're still competing, we're still doing meet rounds, but we've kind of manufactured our own mini meet. Questions? I think this is just kind of talking to the point that I made before about how, you might be able to get a cheaper price at a drop zone, but if you're working at a drop zone that's used to teams training, you're going to just get so many more jumps in. It's going to be way more efficient. And if you're working with a coach that works at that drop zone and knows how to get those teams training, I mean, for example, there have been so many days of the season when Rhythm is coaching and we have 4 teams there, and we just say, okay, all 4 teams are going to be on load 1 at 7 a.m. and then it just goes, and it's just so efficient. Somebody points out it's important to agree what happens when someone misses a planned training day, who finds a sub, who pays for a sub. Yeah, those things are all really important. I think those things are covered in Steve's article too. And that's all part of like, on a how are you going to plan a training day? What are the expectations if there's weather? If everybody's traveling in, then you're probably not just going to go home. There's stuff you can do. If everybody's working on the drop zone, maybe you might say, okay, well, we'll plan another day that we're going to train, so we'll use this day to work. But kind of understanding that. Your thoughts on how much of your tunnel training should be with tunnel rigs? Man, I think it really depends on a lot on like where you are as a team. Even as Rhythm, there are parts of our season where we do a lot more with rigs and then a lot without rigs. The benefit of tunnel rigs is that it does add weight to you. So there's more momentum to get started and there's more momentum to stop. It's harder to stop shorter because you've got all this momentum. The drawback is that you get tired a lot quicker and you can't do as much as efficiently. You start to be less efficient. So you just got to balance that. I would start with so say phase 1, technical phase 1. Do you need rigs to understand what the pictures are and to see them? Probably not, so I would start without. And then certainly maybe you get through and everything technically is great, and then you might add rigs and see where the technique doesn't fit as much. But maybe the rigs come in phase 2 where you're refining and building trust and pushing yourself, and so that would be a good place to add the tunnel rigs in. Is there any value to a specific tunnel, or some tunnels better than others for certain blocks? Well, certainly a larger tunnel is going to allow you to do all the blocks. Although they have changed the dive pool now to, and one of the goals for changing the dive pool was to allow them to fit into the 14-foot tunnel. So now you can fit all the blocks in the 14-foot tunnel. I will admit my bias here. For sure, I love the 16.5-foot tunnel at Paraclete for this because it allows you to go too far, which means that you have to make pictures smaller, Yeah. How formal is your end of camp ritual? Do you always schedule time to sit down and review the camp? I've been to camps where we disperse pretty quickly. Yeah, so this is a great question. And there's actually even, we could do a whole other seminar. And there's, I know both Steve and I think Christy Frickin have written articles about training days that are on our website in the resources section. But we do have a very formal, like our training day is very planned. We have a document that says exactly what happens when, what time we meet, what we do first, how much time we need for things, how many jumps we're doing, when we go to the bathroom, when we eat. All of that stuff is in that plan. And at the end of the camp, for sure, we all talk about our specific goals for the camp. So I specifically was looking at trying to make sure I was in position before I picked up grips. I was my other goal was to take really good grips. And so I talk about how did I do on those specific goals, and then we talk about our goals for the camp overall. Well, we're in this phase, and we're really working on trying to get these blocks into these times, and we did it on these 5 blocks, and we've got 2 more that we didn't. I think it's important not to kind of disperse and to give yourself that time. So as Rhythm, we actually will do that before we do all the like packing up and paying packers and things like that. That'll just creep and take up all your time before you got to go to the airport. But again, we could do a whole other seminar on that. Advantages, disadvantages of turn loads. Yeah, so the advantage is that you get to jump more and you get more jumps. The disadvantage is that you have less prep. Some teams, if you're just learning certain things, turning a load, if you are getting into the door and you don't have you aren't able to say, I am specifically doing this thing, I would start to say, well, is that really worth it? Or what if you just were down a load and had enough time to clearly know what your goal is, and you've prepped it, you've got all the pictures and everything. At the point at which you can guarantee that you can be in the door and know that specific goal that you have and exactly what you need to do to fix it, then I think turning loads is good. But before that, I think you're kind of wasting your money, and a lot of times I see teams, these are the teams that have said, well, we're turning loads so we can do less days and we can do, well, that's great, but if you want to get better, you're going to be so much more effective if you make every jump count by being as prepared as possible and having the most specific, actionable, measurable goals, and having every person on the team in the door knowing exactly what is that next step of the mountain look like, and making sure it's a solid step, not a mush of dirt. What type of end of season after action review might you recommend in moving forward to the next season? Does it look different for a very successful season versus a less successful season where you may not have met all your goals? Sure. I mean, we debrief our seasons, and certainly we've had seasons where we've met our goals and where we haven't. Often when we get to the end of the season, we will have a couple different debriefs. At the end of the meet, we have a debrief and it's about the meet, and often then we've either met a goal or not. Maybe we've won nationals, maybe we have just not won nationals. And so at that point, we're usually not talking about like, oh, we should have had a 5th technical training camp, or we should have. It's more about how we feel, and like, man, this really sucked, but man, we had such great jumps, and I love you guys, and I am so motivated to go do this again. Like, that's usually our, and then we step away, and we might do a technical debrief of the meet, and then step back and look at the whole season. Okay, what do we really like, and what would we do differently? Okay, maybe, let's have more tunnel training earlier, or let's get more, we want more jumping earlier in between the tunnel things. What to look for in a coach? What's the typical cost for a coach? Similar to a teammate, like you want a coach that matches your style. You want a coach that you feel like you can get along with, and everybody on the team feels comfortable with. You want a coach that's available. I think that's a big thing, and something that I remember early on in teams. We'd have this whole list of all these coaches that we wanted, but only one of them was available. So it didn't really matter if you want somebody to coach you if they can't. Like, great, good for you. So availability and then fit is good. I think, and so here's, of course I'm biased here, but I think just because so certainly somebody who has performed at the level that you want to beyond that is important, but that's not the only thing. Being a good competitor doesn't necessarily make you a good teacher. So I think and people have different teaching styles, and people are compatible with different teaching styles. So I think it's fine to talk to coaches, or to go to try out different coaches and kind of understand what's their teaching style. For me, I really like having structure and having an understanding, having an overall idea of what we're trying to do, and then trying to apply that into the small parts. And so when I'm thinking of a coach, I want a coach that's able to do that with me. And then also, you may consider too, like with us, if you get coaching from me and then you get coaching from Steve, it's going to be pretty similar. There's some differences, but it's going to be fairly compatible. So if you stick with sometimes if you stick with a team or people with the same style, and I think even more experienced coaches, or coaches that are better teachers, are able to adapt to to coaching that you've gotten before as well. So I think it is preferable to have the same coach through the whole season, but sometimes getting a different opinion can be okay, and especially if you have a more experienced coach, they're usually good at dealing with that. Any advice on how to deal with the disappointment of a team member leaving? Yeah, this is a sad one for sure, and one I've dealt with for sure. I think that there's both a personal side of it, and then there's like how to move on and be a team and fill that slot and grow from it, and I think that you can kind of compartmentalize those things. I think when when a teammate leaves, it can be frustrating, especially if you feel like they've not met their commitment, or they've let things down. A lot of times it happens because maybe something happened in their life that they weren't expecting, or and then I think you could also reflect, and not that I'm suggesting it's necessarily you need to take the blame for it, but you could start to say, well, what could I have done to facilitate this better? Perhaps if we had done a better job of really talking about our goals and our resources at the beginning of the season, we could have seen that, this guy who says he was going to, drive for three weekends, he's going to drive 5 hours each way for every weekend all summer. We could have said, maybe that's actually not realistic, or, we could have talked through that a little more, and seen that coming, and I think, like, especially when it comes to things like travel and a lot of times team disagreements come from just people not hearing each other and understanding each other. So could we have, as a team throughout the season, talked more candidly about how we were feeling? Oh man, I noticed that you're driving a lot and you are really tired and you're really antsy to leave. Is this more than you expected? What can we do to help? Things like that. I think communicating early is usually the thing. Whenever I look back at teammates that have lost and said, like, man, what could I have done better? I think having sooner communication earlier, more open communication, if there was anything I could have done, that could have been. And honestly, even if that wouldn't have changed it, I can still improve for myself for next season. And then once you've done that, then now moving forward and finding a teammate really depends on what phase of the season you're in and things like that. But you can go back through that same exercise, thinking about, okay, what am I looking for in a teammate? What do I need? And then just go out there and ask everybody and look. Any thoughts or ideas on team buildings? I'm guessing you're thinking about like team building activities. Yeah, I don't want to give up jumpable days. Yeah, man, like this is something that we struggle with on Rhythm a lot. Like, I think it's helpful to do things with your teammates outside of just the jumping, so that you foster that relationship so that you care about each other and you like each other. And that really is going to make you as a team way more resilient when something happens where somebody needs something. You're way more likely to work with each other and work through it if you have that personal relationship. And for different teams, this can mean different things. For some teams, this is hanging out at the bar after training at the end of the day. And for other teams, it might be on a weather day, deciding to go do something, go take a hike together or things like that. Rhythm tends to do these things on our weather days. We will plan, like we'll go into the city together as a team and things like that. Also, for us, if it's applicable, working together is a really great team building thing. So for us, running tunnel camps really helps us build our team. And I know not everybody's going to run a tunnel camp, but you could run, say, a scrambles event. So working with your teammates to run a scrambles event at your drop zone is a great team building thing to do. And it also helps you get back to the sport. It might help you give back for a sponsor or something like that. So a question about sponsorship. So that's a big question. The one thing I would say, actually, I hear this a lot from, and this goes back to that idea about picking a drop zone. I'll hear teams, they'll say, man, this drop zone is going to sponsor us and they're going to give us, $3 off the jump ticket. And all we have to do is, these 3 events. And that's great. But often I feel like if you're not a professional skydiver, chances are that your job and your time makes way more money than anything you can do in skydiving. So what that generally means is the 4 people that you have on that team, if they just work that extra day and spend that money on jumping, you're going to end up with way more jumps than if you now have to take off work or take off of your training time to give back to a drop zone to get back, $3 on a jump at maybe, when you could just work hard and then work hard towards training. I think just a lot of teams don't really balance that. And when they get to the end of the season, they say, man, I wish we had another weekend of training. They don't say, man, we could have trained another weekend, we just couldn't have afforded it. Rarely that's the case. Usually it's, I wish we had another weekend of training. And if we had just, maybe we had gone to that other drop zone that has more planes and get started earlier, and I didn't have to do all these other events. And of course, I say that, and I also will turn around and say that for me, I get a lot of value giving back to the sport and running events, and that's great too. But you can do that individually without committing your entire team to it. And when you commit your entire team to it, now you're cutting directly into training, and that again, that to the question of teammates leaving and stuff like that, like I think, think about as a team, everybody can't make the same commitment. So maybe where you might differ in your commitment is in the non-training type things, so this guy's traveling in, what, we won't worry about, he doesn't need to do the event. I'll do the event, and then we're all going to train more, and that's great. And you can do that and make sure you're talking about that and acknowledging that that trade-off, so that nobody feels like, oh, he's not doing anything, or he feels like, man, they're just doing everything and they don't let me, whatever it is. But all that's all just communication. But that's what I would say about sponsorship. I think it's great, and certainly if you're professional, it's necessary. But I would really look at it. If you're a working team, I would think about it from a numbers standpoint. Thanks, everybody.